good to see everyone here and be together in these turbulent times. It's kind of a theme that we have right now, that for most of us, I think, these are not easy times to live through. And our practice, the practices of the Dharma, of the teachings and practices of the Buddha and other wisdom teachings and with teachings of wisdom and compassion, can be of profound support to us in these times, in all times, but I say particularly in times of need like the ones we're living through right now. And so it's great to have everyone with us today. Just a few words of welcome. I'm Hugh Byrne. I've been teaching with the Insight Meditation Community of Washington, IMCW, which is the overall kind of community that we're part of, IMCW, founded by Tara Brach about 30 years ago. And I've been teaching with IMCW for almost 25 years, since back at, 2003. Been teaching since 2000, and we have within IMCW the Center for Mindful Living, which is a kind of a vibrant community, really, I think, a warm, welcoming Sangha or community with lots of offerings, and we'll share more information about CML offerings at the end of our session today. And so this a warm welcome to everyone, and just a few words about the class today. I mean, it's a very simple format, really. We typically begin with a meditation, about 15, maybe 20 minutes of letting ourselves arrive and settle and open to whatever is arising, whatever's present for us, meeting it with kindness, with acceptance. And then we'll have a talk, maybe 35 minutes to around a theme of the Dharma, teachings and practices. And the theme today will be cultivating peace in turbulent times. I've been talking a good deal about this, and other teachers have as well, just given these unprecedented times that we're living through right now. I don't know, some of you may have seen something on social media of which I found amusing. So it goes something like, I never thought I'd be fighting fascism in my golden years, or I'd be spending my golden years fighting fascism, kind of a little tongue-in-cheek, but also touching on the, as I say, the kind of the extraordinary times that we're living through right now. And where I start from is the place that my own experience, that these teachings and practices can be of profound support, both in helping us deal with whatever's coming up for us, whether it's, the challenging emotions of fear or anger or grief or despair or whatever, overwhelm, whatever it is, that we can cultivate ways of allowing what's here to be here, without those experiences, those emotions, or those mind states becoming the driving force of our life, if you like, the kind of living in stress or in fear, that we can experience what's coming, not push it away, not deny it, not try and avoid it, but allow what's here to be here. But rather than going off into our heads and, this is going to happen, and, catastrophizing, all of those things, that we can just come back to this moment, which is the only moment that we really need to have to be in. The only moment we need to be present for is this one here. What happens tomorrow or next week, we don't know. But we can get into a lot of trouble if we kind of start proliferating. Oh, this will happen and this will happen, all of that. So we have these practices of just being present, opening to our experience as it is. But hopefully we don't stop there. We don't stop with just finding some peace and calm within ourselves, as though we were a little island, in the midst of all this craziness. We could be just this island of peace. I mean, could be nice, but it's, I think that what the teachings offer is much more than that. They offer a way of being in the world where we can help alleviate the suffering of the world, that we can see our responsibility not just, for ourselves or those, very close to us, but really for all beings, that we're Martin Luther King spoke about building the beloved community, which is the community where society and globally where everybody is included, even those who we might think, oh no, not them, Anyway, so that everyone is included in there, and we have to find our way towards this, and it's there in many, many, spiritual and religious traditions. This kind of aspiration, Jesus said, love your neighbors. If you turn the other cheek, if somebody, wants to harm you, love your enemies, and in many traditions as well. The Buddha said, hatred never ended with hatred, only with love is hatred ended. This is the law, ancient and eternal. So what we'll be exploring, I don't want to get into the whole talk now, but exploring how these teachings and practices can support us in terms of freeing our own hearts, but also in helping alleviate the suffering of the world, bringing compassion into the world and peace. And I'm actually going to focus more on the second part of that, because I did a talk on Thursday evening, kind of on this theme, but focused on the first part, kind of the inner transformation. And I'll touch on that today as well. But that's kind of where we'll be exploring today, and I hope we'll have some time for some sharing around that, folks. Talking about what's coming up for you and how you're working with what's present. But as I said, we'll begin with a period of meditation. And so invite you to just come into a posture that's comfortable and relaxed, whether it's sitting or lying down or whatever feels comfortable to you. If you're sitting, just let your back be straight and invite the shoulders to relax. Let your chest be open so you can breathe easily. If you like, you can let your eyes gently close, let your attention kind of drop down into the body. It's putting aside thoughts about the future, the past, memories, worries, plans. Just consciously you might put those aside and let your attention be present with whatever is here right now. Letting your attention come into the body, feeling the body, the contact with your chair or cushion, the weight of your body pressing down on your buttocks, thighs, feet. Just letting yourself settle into being here. Just bring awareness to your breathing. You might consciously take a few longer, deeper breaths just to help you arrive and settle more fully. Nice, full, deep in-breath. Filling the chest, filling the lungs. And then releasing, just letting go on the out breath, long, slow out breath. Breathing in, calming the body. Breathing out, calming the mind. And you could let the longer, deeper breathing just help you settle and arrive more fully here. And the Buddha spoke about the benefits of gladdening the mind, just inviting the mind into a kind of more joyful, more spacious state. One way we can do this is to consciously invite a smile or a half smile to your face. You might think of someone who makes you feel happy or joyful, a child or a friend or a grandchild or a pet, partner. Activating the muscles around the eyes and the mouth as you invite the smile. And the smile really sends a message to our brain and to our nervous system that we can relax, we can be at ease. Be letting the smile be the attitude or expression that you want to bring to whatever comes up in your experience, whatever you're experiencing right now. See if you can just meet with that attitude or expression of a smile. And another way we can gladden the mind is just appreciating what we have, in the midst of what, for many are quite difficult times. We also have many things that support us, whether it's our loved ones, maybe our measure of health or well-being, joys of nature, the natural world, the air and the trees and the creatures, the sun and the moon and the stars. All of the gifts of life that we didn't have to do anything to earn, just given to us. We can appreciate. For many are religious or spiritual practices and teachings that support us. We can just take a moment to appreciate those. And the gift of community, of sangha, this power of being together. The hallmark of suffering really is to feel alone. We're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. just me. But then if we open, we can recognize that there's many, many of us, there's millions of us committed to compassion and living wisely. Committed to a more peaceful, compassionate world. Just appreciate being here together. Just letting the breath be as it is. You might bring awareness to your breathing. Let your breath be an anchor or home base for your attention. Breathing in, breathing out. Meeting whatever is present for you right now with kindness and with acceptance. Notice whatever bodily feelings you're aware of right now. And let those feelings come and go, sensations. Whatever mood or emotions might be present right now. Just let them too come and go. Whatever thoughts might be coming up in the mind, just let them come and go rather than clinging on to them. Just notice a thought and let it pass. Letting yourself just rest here, aware of the body, aware of the changing flow of sensations and feelings, emotions coming and going. The Sufi poet Rumi speaks of welcoming the guests. It's whatever comes up, see if you can just treat it like a guest coming to visit. It will stay for a while, and then when it's ready, it will pass. Not to hold on to some experiences and push away others, but just letting everything come and go in its own time. Let it come, let it be, let it go. And if it's helpful, letting your breathing be just a focus for your attention, to help you just be here now. If it's helpful, you might just notice where your breathing is most clear to you, most noticeable to you. You could just rest your attention there. It might be at the nostrils or the upper lip. As the cool air enters the nostrils and the warmer breath is exhaled. Or it might be the chest, the belly, rising and falling, expanding, contracting with the in-breath and out-breath. You could make a soft mental note of in for the in-breath, out for the out-breath, or rise and fall, if that's helpful. And any time you notice the mind has gone off, maybe gone off into thinking about the future or the past, or gone off somewhere else into plans or worries or daydreams or memories. When you notice that, just pause and you might gently incline your mind back to the body and the breath. Here, this breath, in breath and out breath. Choosing to be here and stepping out of the stories of the mind. It's not a problem when the mind moves into thought, but just choosing what our intention is right now, just to be here. And you can begin again in any moment, no matter what has gone on before. Just come back to this moment, this breath, this feeling, this being here. Whatever else may be going on in your life, in the world, this moment can be a moment of peace, a moment of freedom. As Dorothy Hunt says, peace is this moment without judgment. This moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. Peace is possible in every moment and in any moment. This is a poem called Lost. Stand still. The trees ahead and the bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers, I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. In this last minute or so of the meditation, I just ask you to reflect on, what you noticed coming up in the meditation, what was predominant for you, perhaps present for you. And also just reflect about these times we're living in, these days and weeks. What are you noticing? What are some of the predominant feelings you're having in this period? Let's take a moment or two to just touch into what's present right now and just that kind of a larger flavor of these times for you. What are you noticing? And in a moment, I'll ring the bell and I'll invite you, if you'd like to, just to share a word or two about what's present for you right now, and what the flavor, what you're experiencing in these times, these challenging times we're living in. Take your time coming back, opening your eyes, coming back into the group, and I invite you, if you'd like to, just to share if you'd like to, in the chat, what you noticed, what was coming up for you, if there was a predominant experience or something you want to share in the chat, and just kind of what you're experiencing in these times. Just to kind of bring what's here into the room, into the field. Oh, thank you. Yeah, great. Dorothy, actualizing resistance. Tracy, despair and helplessness. Thank you, Tracy. Naomi, catastrophizing feels like the wrong word when it's already a catastrophe for so many people. Thank you, Naomi. Pam, feeling baffled. Heather, meditation equals peace. These times, fear, hatred, irritation. Thank you. Thank you. And please, if you like to, just feel free over these coming minutes to share. Emily, would you like to lead us in some movement for a few minutes, and then we'll go into the talk and the sharing? So,
yes.
Thank you, Emily.
Let's take that sensation, the energy from our meditation, and open up. Just broaden your arms. I'm inviting you to stand, but you may stay seated. You don't have to. Lifting the arms up. Just reach with your left hand higher. Exhale down. Lifting up the right hand higher. Exhale down. Grasping the left wrist in your right hand and extend over towards the right, resting your head against your left arm, and then dropping the right elbow with an exhale. Being here in the moment with the breath. Inhale up, switch wrists, and extend over towards the left, dropping that left elbow down as you lengthen the right side. Breathing into the right rib cage. Exhale, soften. Allow what is here. Inhale up, floating your arms down. Just roll your shoulders, allowing that both joints to warm up, and the other way for a moment, and then lifting your arms up into cactus arms. Exhale, drop the hands down, leaving the elbows up. Inhale, rising. Exhale, dropping down. Inhale, rise up, extending the arms out. Flip your left palm up. Take a look. Turn the right thumb down. And then on an inhale, switch over to the right palm up, the left thumb down. Back to the left to hold with the breath. And then switch over to the right. Breathing in. Exhaling here. And then lift both arms up, centering, drawing the hands to the heart. And then extending your arms out, place your right wrist on top of your left wrist. Clasp your hands. Soften your shoulders. And just draw a sideways figure 8, the symbol of infinity, allowing all the possibilities of movement of your upper back and your middle back. And come to center, and then move the other direction, finding your way, just as we find our way in meditation. Come to center, dropping the arms down. Notice for a moment a wide stance and just become a windmill. Drawing the arms around and switching the other way. And then come to center, draw your hands out, the left wrist on top of the right, clasping your hands. And draw that sideways figure 8 again. You could bend your knees, shifting with your hips, engaging with your body and your breath. And come to center. Shift in the other direction and explore once again how your body moves in space, in infinity. Come to center, drop your arms down. Draw large beach balls underneath your arms. Exhale, release. And let's do that again. Inhale, lifting. Exhale, lowering. And then if you'd like, we're just going into a forward bend. Notice the hip crease. Extend the spine, but straight spine, keeping your head in line with your spine, and shift so your balance is in your hips, your heels. Your hips are a little further than the heels. And then if you'd like, you could lower your hands to above your knees. And if you like, you could drop down, chin to the chest, opening up the length of the spine while holding the energy of your legs, your feet, touching the earth, engaging with the breath, breathing into the back of the body. Exhale, release, relax. And then placing the hands above your knees, extending your spine, head in line. Tucking in the tailbone. Drawing up your shoulders slowly with the breath. Exhale down, finding strength in this moment. And then drawing the hands up above your head, centering, drawing them to your heart. Out to the group, wishing all well. Thank you for being here. Down to the earth. And then up, whoosh. Oh, my chair got in the way. I'm whooshing again. And then down to the heart and take a bow. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Thanks, Emily. That's lovely to get into the body, feel embodied, get some of the kinks out. So again, welcome everyone and anyone who joined us. Just looking, I'll just continue with some of the things folks have shared. Brenda, new here, thank you for that delightful meditation. I feel like the times are requiring much more of me and trying to listen for messages that tell me where I belong. Thank you, Brenda. Peggy, choosing this week to focus on finding joy and minimizing news. Thank you, Peggy. Susan, opening to my knowing. Thank you, Susan. Elizabeth, feeling sad and worried. Hisham, I've never felt the power of Sangha than I do in these challenging times. It gives me a deep sense of belonging. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Hisham. Sharon, I feel myself angry and frustrated with everyday things, whether traffic, people not doing what I want. Yeah, good to recognize that and be kind to yourself. Thank you, Sharon. Susan, mix of excitement over a family visit and anxiety over political environment. Thank you, Susan. Jerry, this was a needed welcome refuge away from fear and worry, feeling more hope and energy. Thank you, Jerry. Sylvia, an opportunity, I think you were saying there, to feel my emotions in these times, fear, empathy, connection. Thank you. Diane, anxiety, grief, gratitude for honest, intelligent voices. Thank you. Tom Dunn, thank you so much. Cassie, so grateful for this community. Thank you, Cassie. Pamela, my throat chakra was activated. I started coughing because it's very challenging to speak your truth in society. Thank goodness for our Sangha. I did calm down and find peace finally. Thank you, Hugh, and everyone. Thank you, Pamela. And Beth, thank you both for this. Emily, finding a refuge amidst feeling lost. Thank you. And Achala, thank you, Emily. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for sharing and thank you for being here. Yeah, just, starting from the place, just share some reflections that these are extraordinarily challenging times where, what's been happening particularly for the last 6 weeks has been a shock to the senses, to the emotions, to the heart. Watching thousands of people being laid off, with not with any real justification, but just kind of like, you're not doing what we want you to do, so, we're going to get rid of you. Cutting off aid that's being, the people need, in different parts of the world to survive, to be able to have food to eat in Sudan, or HIV drugs in South Africa. Just the cruelty of it really, really, it definitely challenges what we know as, just the heartlessness of it is extremely painful. There's so many things. I don't want to spend too much time just focusing on, what all of us are experiencing really every day, that this is, cruelty and inhumanity, and, fundamentally, grounded in what's not true, in dishonesty, making claims about, situations that are not true, whether it's from Ukraine starting the war that we're experiencing now, and the things that we cherish for democracy, the rule of law, friendships with other democratic countries, kind of all of this is being, we're being challenged on a daily basis. But having said that, there's a lot of there's much that we have that is really powerful. I think the most powerful thing of all is that we can ground ourselves in the truth, in telling the truth and being honest, and clearly that what is being done is is based on confusion, unconsciousness, and dishonesty, and to know that we're grounded in truth, and that that our commitment is to compassion, to caring, to living together, is a profound support for us, and the fact that we are together is also a great support. And these teachings of the Dharma that the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago, and that have been developed over these last 25 centuries, as well as other wisdom teachings that point in the same direction of truth and compassion and wisdom, are of enormous support, I think, in these times. And that's kind of the theme of what I want to talk about today. And I want to just highlight, I know a number of you were at the talk and the meditation on Thursday night, where I really talked about 3 core practices that can support us in these times, and that do support us in these times. And I won't go into them in a lot of depth now, because they're really the heart of what we're doing here. And also I talked more length on Thursday about them. But the first one is just to open to our experience, to make space, as we do in the meditation, for whatever is coming up. What we're doing when we open to, if it's anger we're feeling, or if it's fear or worry or grief, that rather than I want to keep that away because it's an unpleasant feeling, we often might do that, habitually, oh, I don't want to feel that. Let me have a glass of wine to, or some way of avoiding it. Let me just binge watch something on TV, or some way of escaping. That rather than doing that, we actually open to our experience and say, well, okay, this is difficult. This is a difficult feeling to be with, a difficult emotion to be with. But if we can open to it, then that can be actually transformative, that being willing to open to our experience can allow us to engage with the world and engage, with what's coming up for us in a much more open and spacious way. I think in this period, it's really important to feel grief, to experience grief, because what is happening is that things are being lost that are irreparable. Lives that are lost, won't come back. There won't be any magical solutions. Hopefully, we can, through a variety of forms of resistance, public resistance and protest and rallies and pressure on Congress and all of the other ways that the courts that are pushing back on these policies. Hopefully that that can have, and I think is already having an effect. But there's a lot that's already being lost and has been lost, and to allow ourselves to feel that, I think, is to feel our grief. I think is really profoundly important if we are to be engaged and to be effective and to help alleviate the suffering of the world. What we easily do and habitually do is we respond often from a place of reactivity, of like somebody's doing something we think is harmful. Then we go right into a kind of fight or flight mode of, oh, this is wrong, I've got to do this, without fully feeling what we're feeling. So to allow ourselves to feel our emotions, to experience them fully, then rather than them being, afflictive or painful or something that we need to avoid. They can be really a doorway, a pathway to real peace and to engaged action in the world, action to alleviate suffering. Eckhart Tolle says, what you accept fully, you go beyond. What you accept fully, you go beyond. When we allow ourselves to really feel what we're feeling, then this, we can really untangle ourselves from what, many of us have experienced, that being caught up in anger or fear or other, painful mind states and emotions. We can process those feelings. We can kind of metabolize them within ourselves and then engage, fully and from a much more spacious place. So that this practice, which is at the heart of our practice, in a meditation practice, is to allow ourselves to feel what we're feeling, to open to the truth. This is what I'm feeling. It may be painful, but if I can allow myself to feel it, then it can come and go. It's only becomes problematical when I somehow cling to it, or try and push it away. Then it becomes, it becomes more afflictive. It becomes more painful. It can become debilitating. So to allow ourselves to feel what we're feeling, to welcome the guests, to find peace in this moment, just as it is. So that's the first kind of core practice in working with, the fears, what people shared in the chat about what's coming up for them in these times. The second practice I spoke about and just talk about briefly is just to untangle ourselves from the stories and the narratives in our minds. A lot of our suffering is not about, say, our suffering generally is not about what's happening right now, but about the mind's reaction to what's going on right now. I don't like this, or this is going to go on forever, or some story we're telling ourselves in our minds. So when we notice that we're going, for example, into fear about where is this all going to go? What's going to happen? Oh, isn't it going to be terrible? The mind naturally does this kind of we want to know about, like, how should I respond? What can I do? But easily we get caught up in this kind of, call it mental proliferation, these narrative stories in our minds. So to be able to observe them without being attached to them, without identifying with them, to be able to say, oh, okay, that's a kind of negative scenario that I'm playing out in my mind, and it's making me feel even more fearful. Okay, if I can see that, then I can choose to let go of that. I can say, okay, that's a thought. I can let it pass and just come back to what I'm feeling right now. Allow myself to feel. Can I just, like, okay, there's tightness in my chest. There's a sense of, kind of fear in the body. Okay, let me breathe into it. Let it come. Let it go. So that so untangling ourselves from our from the stories in our mind that we can get caught up in. Again, Eckhart Tolle says you can always cope with the present moment. We always have the capacity to say, okay, what's here right now? Might be painful, might be difficult, but we can with practice we can train ourselves to say, okay, this is what's here right now. Can I just be with this? Can I allow it to come and to go? And then it becomes like a weather system. It comes along, it does its thing, and then it passes on. But when we get hooked on it, oh, I've got to push it away, or I've got to, resist this, or if it's something pleasant, I've got to hold on to this. But rather just to let everything come and go. He says you can always cope with the present moment. You can't cope with what is only a mind creation. You can't cope with the future. The future is just, it's just a mental projection. We don't know the future, and when the future comes, it'll be the present, right? It'll be a new present moment. But the future, when we obviously it can be helpful to think, okay, what am I going to do tomorrow? I've got this. That's fine, no problem with that. But when the future becomes a kind of something we get kind of hooked on, particularly if we're with kind of fearful scenarios, then it becomes a source of suffering. So to be able to just see that and to let it go. So we can always cope with the present moment. We can't cope with something that's just a mind projection, a mind creation. We can't cope with the future. Future can just, we might think, oh, this will be the future. And then a minute later, no, this will be so it's just a kind of a mental bubbles, really. So to be able to see that and let it go. So that's a second, just to kind of untangle ourselves from the proliferation of the mind, mental stories. And the third is to cultivate self-compassion. This is recognizing that this is a really challenging time. I think for probably all of us here, this is a difficult time. It's not something we think, okay, this is how I wanted the arc of history to be going in this direction, bending towards in this direction. It feels like it's, at least for a time, bending in another direction, which, isn't what most of us, I'm sure, what would have hoped for. So recognizing that and meeting our experience with self-compassion. Self-compassion is really is being kind to ourselves. It's recognizing our common humanity, that we're not alone in experiencing whatever's going on for us. Other people are feeling the same or very similar things. And just meeting whatever's coming up with mindfulness, with a balanced awareness. This is really the practice of self-compassion. And it's a very powerful one at any time, but I think particularly in these times when we get many feeling very difficult emotions and mind states to meet our experience with kindness, recognize that we're not alone, and to just find just that awareness, that openness to letting everything come and go. So these are some of the, you might say, the inner practices that can help us navigate these times, meet these times with some quality of peace, maybe of equanimity, some resilience, so that we're not swept up by everything. We're not picking up the newspaper in the morning and, oh my God, no, not another thing, or watching the news in the evening, oh no. We can see those, and very important to be judicious about what we take in. How many people feel that, that you take in too much, and feel overwhelmed by it. We want to be engaged. We want to care, obviously. But if what we're taking in is just like, oh my God, oh no, not one more thing, then that's not very, very helpful. So to be able to say, okay, I find reading newspapers to take in news tends to be a much better way for me to take in information than, watching the news and it's almost like they're wanting to rev you up, because it'll keep you focused, keep your attention on their, whatever they're offering, and that can be the same online, and social media, etc. So choosing how you take in information. So all of these practices can, I think, are extremely helpful to us as we navigate these times. But what I want to focus on in the remaining time today is really, or are really practices and particularly a practice that can really shift our frame of reference in a very, very powerful way. You know, when we suffer in relation to what's going on in our world or in our life, what we're doing is we're really lens that we're looking through is very much a lens of the self. You know, this, like, how is this affecting me, or maybe me and those close to me? You know, it can be often, and when we suffer, I would say it's very much we're looking at at things in a kind of self-referential way or self-identified way. If we're suffering, there's something about me, you know, me, that is really troubled by what's going on. You know, that sense, because suffering is always about clinging to a sense of self. You know, it's a separate self that we cling to. Oh, you know, that identification of things through that lens. And one of the most powerful ways we can transform our relationship to what's going on and what we're in the middle of right now is really to shift the frame of reference from that I-centered view to a we-centered view, an all-being-centered view. You know, we shift from the I to all of us holding this together. And my own commitment, rather than being just to myself and maybe those close to me, that my commitment is to alleviate suffering, the suffering of others, and ultimately the suffering of all beings. And this path in Buddhism is known as the Bodhisattva path. Bodhisattva path is really a commitment of compassion, of responding with compassion to the suffering of the world. It's like looking at what's happening, you know, what's happening in our society right now, in our world right now, and the things that come up, to look at it through that lens of how can I help alleviate the suffering, you know, the suffering of all beings. This is one of the most, in the Buddhist kind of history of the last 2,500 years from the time of the Buddha, I would say this development of this way of seeing, which is kind of like an invitation to move from the self view, even if it's the self becoming freer and freer, you know, which can still be somewhat kind of self-referential, to being committed to the awakening of all beings, the freedom of all beings. This development within Buddhism, I would say, is one of the most 3 or 4 major developments in the history of Buddhism in the last 2,500 years, along with, you know, the development of Chan and Zen Buddhism in China and Zen and Japan, and expanding at other places. It's also a very powerful development, new way of kind of looking at our experience. The Tibetan Buddhist tradition, a very powerful new ways of looking at our experience and waking up. But this teaching of the teachings of the Bodhisattva path, I think, one of the most powerful shifts, because they allow us to kind of reframe our view, our understanding of our experience and our relationship to the world. Again, from that more self-focused view to that larger we-focused view. And the Bodhisattva, what it means is, Bodhi means awakening, and Sattva means being. So it's a being committed to waking up, to finding freedom, to experiencing freedom. But it's freedom not just for ourselves, but for all beings. And classically in the Buddhist, in Buddhist history, and the archetype or the ideal is of somebody who has done all the work to free themselves from suffering. They've let go of afflictive states and they've cultivated wholesome, beneficial states and have let go of suffering, and they've chosen to stay in the world of suffering, what's called samsara, endless wandering, wandering, just kind of going from one suffering to another, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, kind of thing. We keep getting caught up and in this kind of wandering, endless wandering. The Bodhisattva, could just kind of end this, leave this realm of suffering, but chooses to stay in this realm of suffering until all beings are liberated. So that's the archetype. That's the kind of ideal vision. It's, it's articulated in the vow that somebody can take, a commitment to the awakening of all beings. And it's a very idealized kind of vow. I think it's sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to eradicate them all. The gates of the Dharma, gates to freedom, are limitless. I vow to enter them all. The Buddha's way is inconceivable. Excuse me. I vow to attain it. So it kind of puts out this view of like almost an impossible dream kind of thing, but with the commitment. But I'm committed to doing this. I'm committed to the awakening of all beings. Excuse me. And essentially, this path of the Bodhisattva is fundamentally a commitment to and an intention to alleviate suffering wherever it's found. So to shift ourselves from that more narrow self-view into the view that what I want to do, what I'm committed to do, is healing suffering wherever I can find it. So moving from the more idealized view and the more archetypal view to just how we can embody this in our own lives. I found this practice actually to be a transformative one. Just to take a excuse me again, to take a excuse me, have a little drink of water. We could take a situation which we might find to be a troubling one, where, we might be helping somebody, a family member or a friend, and trying to support them in some way or another, but we might find, our intention is, to be as supportive as possible, but we might find ourselves, getting caught up in, this is taking too much of my time, and I've got so much to do. And we could get caught up in those kind of stories of how this is impacting me. But if we shift to that larger view, that larger bodhisattva view, and take on this whatever we're doing as a wish to alleviate suffering, then the way we engage with that situation or that experience can be really transformed. I found this in my, in our own lives with a family member where, making a commitment to being of support to a family member who's going through a very difficult time in aging and memory loss. And still finding myself like, oh, well, this is taking so much time from other things I've got to do. To be able to consciously shift that kind of self-referential view into a wider view of my commitment here is to be of support, to be of help in any way I can. And shifting to that view has really transformed the experience itself. It was really changed that, like, okay, I'm now looking at this in a very different way. I'm not looking at it so much really at all through that lens of, oh, how is it affecting me? And it's not leaving me time to do that. And if those things come up, I can just say, okay, let me come back to that larger intention. I found this also very much with the times we're living in. I experienced the first Trump administration as a pretty afflictive time. I'd wake up in the morning and say, oh, another day. Oh, asterisk, 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 just like, oh no, this, and I would say to some extent was really kind of experiencing this, like how was it affecting me? And it was painful and it was difficult. Something, being able particularly in these last number of months to shift it, the frame of reference, the way of seeing from that more personal self-referential view to all of us together and the wish to alleviate suffering has really been a game changer for me. To kind of, it's not that I'm not bothered. I care deeply, as I think probably everybody here does, about what's going on and the suffering that's being caused and wanting to do something about it. But shifting that frame to all of us together and the wish to alleviate suffering, not so much my own, I'm part of this larger we, but it's not just refracted through or reflected through my own kind of interests, my own wishes, what's comfortable or uncomfortable for me, but just coming back to that sense of, okay, we're all in this together. We're all, this is something that's affecting us all. And so that larger view of what can I do? What can I do to be as helpful as I can be in these times? I come back to this something that Clarissa Pinkola Estes said, and it captures this time for me. She says, ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but of stretching out to mend the part of the world that's within our reach. So ours isn't the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but stretching out to mend the part of the world that's within our reach. And I think it's easy for us to get caught up in, oh, there's so much to do. I can't do it all. It's overwhelming. But we can let go of that and say, what can I do? And this is really the kind of the Bodhisattva vision. How can I be of support? How can I help? It's not that I have to do everything, but where is my heart called to respond? What do I feel, and where can I make a difference? So this is the invitation is really to come into a shift of our awareness, a shift of our way of seeing from that self view to a commitment to, a conscious commitment, whether we do it as a vow or whether we do it in a public way or we do it within our own hearts, but committing ourselves, what can I do in this period to help alleviate suffering, to help bring compassion into the world, in the best way that I can do it. And so that becomes the main intention. That becomes the central intention of our hearts. And engaging in that way, or from that kind of way of seeing, and having the intention of it alleviating suffering be the ground of our actions and our engagement in this period, is, I think, really transformative in terms of our own suffering and in terms of our own, potentially in terms of our own effectiveness. Because when we're coming from this place, we're not in that tight kind of self-reference view. We're not like, oh, I feel really stressed by this, or I feel fearful about this. We can feel what's coming up, let it come and go, and say, what's my intention? How can I alleviate suffering? What can I do that can be supportive? And I just want to finish, just kind of conclude this for today with Jack Cornfield in his book, The Wise Heart, or Wise Heart, Teachings of Buddhist Psychology, I think is the subtitle. He has a chapter on the Bodhisattva path. And he talks about 3 qualities of the Bodhisattva, 3 qualities of a being, any one of us, committed to awakening. Committed to their own awakening, their own freedom, and the freedom of all beings. And the first quality is that the Bodhisattva takes refuge in the truth, in acceptance that this is, however things are, this is the way things are, and I have to engage with things as they are in this moment. So many of us, probably the vast majority of us, would rather this moment be different than it is, would rather there be an administration in power that was really committed to the well-being of all, rather than to, some narrow segment of the population and a narrow view of, what is the right way of proceeding. But the truth is, we are where we are. So how do we engage? This is our field of battle, as it were, in a spiritual sense. This is where we're called on to act and to engage. And the Bodhisattva path, I think, provides a framework for us, a way of seeing and a way of committing, intending, aspiration, engaging in the world that can transform our own hearts and help alleviate the suffering of the world. So starting where we are, accepting that this moment as it is. In Carlos Castaneda's books, he talks about the, Don Juan, the shaman, who says, the spiritual warrior treats everything, or approaches everything as a challenge. The everyday person treats everything as a blessing or a curse. The habitual tendency of the mind is, oh, wonderful, this is great, I won the lottery. Oh, terrible, I lost my job, whatever, that we kind of we hold on to the pleasant, we grab on, oh, this is wonderful, this is terrible. But the Bodhisattva, the spiritual warrior, treats everything as a challenge. This isn't maybe what many of us wanted to see, but this is where we are. And this is the only place really right now we can engage is with things as they are. And we engage with things as they are, we can then move towards a vision of how we want things to be. But it has to start from here. It can't start from some idealized place that is different from where we are. We start from here and we move towards, what is the end, the goal really is, I think is best stated in the teachings in the, the example of Dr. Martin Luther King, He spoke of the beloved community, which is really a kind of an expression of the bodhisattva, the kind of world that the bodhisattva ideal is moving towards. A community, a society, a world that includes all beings, that it is committed to the well-being of all, even those who are, opponents, adversaries. They're part of the beloved community as well. So we begin with acceptance. The second quality is to transform, is to find freedom within ourselves. So we work with our own practices, like the practices I spoke of earlier, of cultivating wholesome qualities, abandoning unskillful qualities, and transforming our own hearts. That's the second quality, to transform our own hearts, find freedom within ourselves. And the third is to envision a path of freedom for ourselves, for our community, for our world. Jack says, envisioning has enormous power. With our, with our vision and imagination, we can help create the future. Envisioning sets our direction, marshals our resources, makes the unmanifest possible. So the vision really is of, what is it that I can do? What is it that we can do to bring about a more compassionate, a more peaceful world, a more caring world? And to have that be our North Star. I'm conscious of the time now. I'm just going to share a quote from Martin Luther King on this. He says, we must make it clear that it is injustice which we seek to defeat, and not persons who may happen to be unjust. So it's not the personalities. We're trying to change unjust policies and practices, etc. We have before us the glorious opportunity to inject a new dimension of love into the veins of our civilization. Our motto must be freedom and justice through love, not through violence, not through hate, no, not even through boycotts, but through love. As we struggle for freedom in America, it may be necessary to boycott at times, but we must remember as we boycott that a boycott is not an end within itself. It's merely a means to awaken a sense of shame within the oppressor and challenge his false sense of superiority. But the end is reconciliation. The end is redemption. The end is the creation of the beloved community. So I think we can see ourselves in this period, this vision, the bodhisattva vision of wanting to alleviate the suffering in whatever way we can, that we're part of a very righteous and moral struggle, just like the civil rights movement in the 50s and 1960s, against what are oppressive and wrongful policies. And we can identify those as being wrong, as being harmful, as being cruel, without turning anybody into the enemy, but rather see the policies as needing to be changed, and that we can feel ourselves part of a community, as part of a moral and righteous struggle to create a more peaceful, a more compassionate society, and to do everything that we can, and using this bodhisattva vision, this commitment to the well-being of all and to alleviate the suffering of all, rather than just coming back to that self-reference view, that kind of self-identified view. And when we do come back to that, we can just see that, let it go, and then invite that larger vision and that larger intention. So I'm going to stop here, recognizing that I've gone on longer than I intended to, but just pause here and we'll finish up. And I'm going to Karen has to leave in a minute, but I'm going to stay around. And if folks want to stay around for 15 minutes or so, just to talk a little bit more about this, I'm happy to do that. But I also want to let folks who need to go more promptly to leave at 12. So let me just pause that here and to say, Karen has put in the chat there upcoming events, the Center for Mindful Living, and also if you would like these offerings, these classes are offered to everybody. There's no cost or no charge to join us. Everyone is welcome. But if you are able, if you're inclined to make a donation to help support, us continuing, the teachers continuing to teach me today, and the Center for Mindful Living, IMC and IMCW, you can make a donation and through the links that are there on in the chat. So thank you for your support.